Amazing. So yeah, so you guys have
Human
got into
attracting my patterns, yeah. So I realized that I'm have been people that need fixing.
yeah.
That I'm not good enough was one that came up. But as I said yesterday, I'm kind of past that stage of my life. So I realized that that's the thing that I was attracting, and that often I felt like I wasn't good enough, and I was trying to be the best that I could be. But I'm past that. That was a few years ago. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
just sat to them and brought it up and just reminded myself of some of those patterns I've gone through. It's all
yeah.
right.
And did anything else land for you? I mean, we've talked to, I know you guys had already joined yesterday and we kind of dived into a little bit of day one and day two. So with day three, did anything land for you guys?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of things.
Lots of things.
Heaps. Because like I feel kind of similar to what Craig was saying. I feel like I'm in a sort of, I don't, would you call it resetting phase where my nervous system is readjusting. It's in a process of readjusting where I'm not going to attract what I was formerly familiar with. Now I've got a lot more insight and clarity and just feel the sense of groundedness within me.
Yep.
And it it hit pretty, it was not one of those not massive insights that came through this morning just as I was like reflecting on yesterday's call and even like today's transmission. It was like, well, I realized everything, like life is like a regulation game. It's like everywhere I'm looking now, all I see is, oh, there's another way to regulate your nervous system. All these different healing modalities, and practices, even like the legal system. What do they call it? They have regulations.
Yeah.
It's right there in your face, and it's like hot. And I'm like having another one of these like moments. Like, it can't be that fucking simple, surely. Well, yeah, there it is. It's right in front of you. And everywhere I look, everywhere I read posts about healers, and I'm like, yeah, all they're talking about is regulating the nervous system in their particular modality or form. That's all it is. So, just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, but it gets easier the more you become. And like you said, awareness, you said it today, actually, awareness is not enough. It's the start, but there's many more pieces to the puzzle. And it's like, and I've had this metaphor for years, but it didn't really make sense. Well, it made sense to me, but it's like it came in and it goes. It's like trauma. Like people talk about pieces of the puzzle, right? But trauma is like having 10 different jigsaw puzzles, and you mix all the pieces up together, and then you're trying to work out, well, which piece goes with which fucking puzzle. And people try to sort of mix and mash and think it's just one big puzzle. No, it's not. Until you like actually what you were saying, until you get present, you say, oh, hang on, I've got to separate and segregate. This piece of the puzzle is for this landscape puzzle. This piece of the puzzle is for that puzzle. And like, you don't know how many actual puzzle boxes you've got. That sort of comes later, but people sort of get too caught up in the complexity and looking at like the whole gamut of it and saying, oh, it's just one puzzle. No, not. And this is why you're talking about aspects of attraction. That's only one puzzle piece. That's one puzzle. Then there's the puzzle of, your childhood traumas and experience. Then there's the puzzle, all these various different puzzles. And, we're just sort of starting to clarify, well, this goes with putting it into its proper place. So, and it's funny because attraction is almost like, I don't know if it's the central theme. I think maybe that the childhood puzzle is more like the central puzzle that sort of brings all the other ones together. Like attraction is only one over here, and then you've got let's say the workplace puzzle and the money puzzle and all these different contexts that are like puzzles. And then, so, you could have a 1,000-piece puzzle, a 500-piece puzzle, a 2,000-piece puzzle. You don't really know, but what I found is like the process of, I don't know if you call it integration or being more present, or just the process of regulating itself. You know, as you become more regulated, those puzzles start to segregate and separate on their own into their relevant parts or their relevant puzzle boxes.
Mhm.
And then they start to organize themselves and the pieces just start to fit them. So you don't actually have to do it. So this is where the trap is, that people get caught up in, oh, you got to do the work. You got no, you don't. You just got to regulate, and the system knows exactly what to do.
Well,
It knows exactly which puzzle piece goes with which puzzle.
Well, the system shows itself, right? If you can regulate and watch yourself in the moment and know where, if you're talking about puzzles, right, in relating or, traction, you're watching a system play out, and there's aspects of those that fit that puzzle piece, right? But you're right. If you're not regulated, there's too much noise and all the other pieces can kind of get muddled in there, and it adds to the confusion that it's hard to actually unpack a system. When we actually are able to come back to a place of coherence and regulation, our nervous system's no longer in red flags and creating stories of safety or protection, or no, that can't be right, and trying to keep your identity safe, and so it will create all these illusions that then confuse the whole system. And when we come back to regulation, we quiet some of that mind, we become more productive, we have our intuition that starts to tune in various things. So our body, it naturally, all of a sudden the system shows itself, the puzzle shows itself, and you're like, okay, I can see it a bit clearly now. Actually, what do I need to work on? And then we start to look at those pieces of the puzzle. But just working on one piece, if you just had enough awareness in your mind, it's not enough if you're not regulating the nervous system, right? So it's like that reflection of, that's why we're talking about this one thing, and towards the end of it, which I recorded today, I started talking about a little bit about like the core wounding, right? Core wounds themselves that are developed in our childhood actually will often reflect very heavily in our relationships and our values and how we play a game, and our belief systems and what triggers us and various things. Can you guys hear that tapping?
No.
No, give me 2 seconds, because my cat's obviously got out and now she's banging on the back door. 2 seconds. Come on, here we go. Quickly. Let's stand there, bang on the door, and then stand there. That would have set my nervous system off listening to it, because it was like bang, 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 bang right beside me, right? And she would have just kept going.
But
And now
that's funny.
she's like, and now she's on the table. She's like, oh no, hang on, I need to get involved. This is part of my show. I need to show up.
Yeah, there she is. She just showed up, as you said.
Right.
But this is the other thing I realized. Pets are perfect for helping you regulate, because they bring you back into the present moment.
And they actually help soothe. You got to watch, because animals actually do take on some of, like we were talking about, the child will actually absorb some of our emotions, and like as a child we can take on what our parents did, and it's commonly seen, if a in one of my biggest wounded experiences, even knowing it wasn't that bad, but a child, how it perceives trauma or something that, they felt unjust or unfair, or, whatever the story is that we bring up, often our parents were feeling, or the parent that was in that situation is feeling the actually same. And we didn't know that, because they're not saying that to us, but then we've made a story about that. So, and animals will take it on, and I try and tell my cat, don't take it on for me, I just be here to love me and appreciate me. You don't have to take it all on. But they feel us, and they're very tuned in beings, and most people don't realize how tuned in an animal is, and children are too, without consciously being aware that they can perceive things that aren't spoken. And we take that on and develop these core wounds, and we develop these identities and attraction patterns and all these various things based on those experiences that unconsciously show up. So yeah, it's big, right? So knowing and nervous system, that's why I've worked in stress energetics for years, is that in every stage of our lives, when we go to shift and change and evolve, the nervous system will activate because it needs to scan our environment to see if everything is safe. But if it's hyperactive, it will red flag everything. It will block us. It will keep us looping. And many people don't realize that because of their environments, even if you've had like a traumatic relationship of abuse and things like that, like I've had, CPTSD, it can actually have our nervous system so hyperactive in its safety system and whatever that was, whatever it had identified as that home system, and it becomes very prominent to how we move forward in our relationships, right? And learning how to regulate that. So in every stage for us to evolve in money or us to evolve in our workplace or anything in our lives, we need to know how to recognize when is our nervous system out of coherence. Goodness me.
Now,
It's not even that I'm still patting her. Literally, if I could turn my camera and show you, she's sitting beside me and she's getting patted.
Yeah.
But it's like, no. You need to give me your undivided attention now. Yeah.
well, you can
She's like it's
multitask.
she's like
Women are good at that, aren't they?
she needs to be seen. She likes
Yeah.
to be center of attention right now, right? Typical
Yeah.
woman, right? She's a cat. She's a female.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it is a significant piece because it will have a lot of undercurrent things that happen. But this is, why it's understanding, being able to, the tools that I'm teaching over these few days around the awareness, around feeling into the body, around looking at our nervous system. Tomorrow it's coherence, bringing those pieces together. And then how do we alchemize the energetic charge so we can fully start to transform it on all levels, right? And embodiment. Like, there's one thing to do this once, but we have to embody the shift, because it's easy for our nervous system to activate and echo, or when I say echo, it's like, it can create stories or little reflections of that identity that you are now choosing to not be in, right? And it doesn't mean that you haven't cleared it. It's just like a test to say, hey, actually, am I going to play this reality out? Or am I choosing a new reality and a new energy and a new frequency? And we keep doing that till it becomes an unconscious thing through our neural pathways and neuroplasticity, right? So yeah, there's so much potency in this that when we actually learn how to fully use the process, how it can be used in multiple areas of our lives, and transform so many aspects.
Yeah. And it was interesting because I also had the insight that like it's almost like an ECG machine where you've got the base or the flat line, and that's like the true ground. So if you think of a heart rate or a pulse, it's just a beat, flat beat, and like those beeps, and then when a person goes into cardiac arrest, it starts going haywire, and it's almost like your nervous system has set itself to safety at this heightened. It's familiar. There's that word, with safety being up here, whereas the healthy state is back down at the baseline. And that process of, processing itself is regulating, is just bringing it down back to the baseline. And it's just that grounded awareness where it doesn't. And this is what else I realize. It's like everywhere you look, like, life being a regulation game, it's like, why do you hire a lawyer? Because they're more regulated. They're aware of the processes and procedures, and they're not up here. They know exactly what to do.
Yeah, they function usually
Yeah,
in quite high stress.
or a
Yeah.
tradesman or whatever. It's like they've been trained, and their nervous system is trained. It's like, doesn't matter what, I'll say emergency services, they're trained. They've trained their nervous system to, no matter what disaster or catastrophe is in front of them, they come at it from a regulated
Well,
response.
even then, that they're in there, even if they're in a stress response, because a lot of them are actually stressed still, they've learned how to deal under stress, how to not get caught in processes. They've trained that part of their system to actually respond, to deal with that triage. Yeah. And interesting, because when we look at, you know, you're talking about baselines, a baseline frequency is neutralized, right? But we are a polarity, and this is why we're attracted through polarity as well, because of our realm of existence. And I'm not going to get too spiritual on everyone because I might lose people too, but there is science behind this. But neutrality, right? But high vibrational states, right? To reach those high vibrational states means we are regulated, you know, in our parasympathetic system, and then we're functioning in more joy and more bliss and more presence and feeling and experience life. And the thing is that when we're in a high vibration, the hertz frequencies are actually like ding, 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 ding. And what happens then is it's actually collapsing time, collapsing quantum physics, allowing things to change in the quantum field faster, is right. And our brain, the way our brain will actually function, as well as the chemistry that's released in the body, is much more healing for the body. I mean, there's so many great things to do with that. We're kind of getting sidetracked. But when we're in a stress response, it's a response of not changing. It's scientifically proven that when we're in stress, you can't learn something new. Your nervous system is not actually in a position to take on new information. It doesn't have that space, because it is already using its energy to look for red flags, to question everything, to be in safety systems, not in a productive learning system. And so change can only occur when our nervous system is opened up. For us to alchemize something and to shift something, we need to be in the parasympathetic system. We need to be in that. And the higher our vibration is, you know, that's that energetic charge. High vibrational charges actually can alchemize lower vibrational charges. We need to open the field of where that charge is held. And this is partly why, you know, it's going through various parts of one, feeling the body, because if you can't feel when your nervous system trips, you're going to have this contraction aspect. And you're not going to be able to recognize, where is this held in my body? You know, you're not going to have that curiosity and that innocence that comes with those aspects, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a vital piece to healing, and it's a vital piece to manifesting. It's a vital piece to everything in our lives, attracting what we want, to changing our lives. We need to be able to work with that system itself for us to create change, right? So yeah, it's a powerful piece, and it's scientifically proven. And for years, it's been one thing that has really left me a little bit baffled as to why it's not something that more people seek to understand, right? It's you know, because it just isn't. They're not taught that this is such a vital system, that we're either in stress response, or, you know, we're either surviving, which is a stress response, or thriving. And there's two states of being, really. And it's like, what state do you choose to live in? And if your relationships are being built in a survival system, you're generally going to have a lot more trauma, a lot more unhealthy aspects, a lot more deregulation and lack of control of decision triggers, you name it, right? Reactivity.
And that's a state where there is no choice. When
you're not in the
you don't have the ability to choose when those triggers are fired and you're activated. And it's funny, the two words sort of come to mind when we're talking about regulation, which is bringing it back to a state of homeostasis, or state of equilibrium, where everything's grounded, everything's balanced, and you can actually, and then you have the ability to choose to make healthy choices, as you say, instead of being triggered into whatever state it is, an anxious state or hypervigilant state or whatever. You can't make a wise choice in those states.
Well, you might think it is. Your head will tell you it is, but it's not.
Exactly.
And for me, it's like even, you know, a reflection. I think I said yesterday, you know, you can be convictive, or, you know, but you can be in a calm, convicted space where you actually are regulated and reflective in a positive way. Or you can be in a state that you just like your nervous system is telling you that that's truth and I'm right, and it is felt more as if you're attacking somebody, you know. And there's a very big difference in the way that it is received by somebody else. If you are going into a situation from a deregulated state, their body can energetically pick up that you're in a defensive system. And that often creates a reactive defensive system in the other person. So it's like two people picking up a sword and ready to to fight or defend or protect ourselves because we can feel that the other person is in a system like that, right? So it is really, really important. No, excuse me, I'm on a call for work. Thank you. He's just like, can I go ride my dirt motorbike? And I'm like, yeah, that's a no right now while I'm not around. Byron, please. Thank you.
No, hey?
It's at the best of times, but no, we're definitely not going riding motorbikes right now.
No.
That will have mum's nervous system a bit like, yeah, what are they doing? Was he okay? No, you need your mum around for that kind of thing, right? Anyway, children. So Craig, has anything for you? What has landed for you in the last day, other than you've explained that you've seen a pattern that was an old pattern? I mean, you're a great healer yourself, right? So, you know, you're very aware of a lot of these things as well. There's your dog. You even there, Craig?
There's a dog there.
Huh.
Yeah,
You don't have any animals that are going to jump into,
No, I don't actually. No,
or children?
no, I don't. My kids are big enough to look after themselves. So,
Yeah, I'm not going to let my 9-year-old go out riding motorbikes without me around. That's for sure.
yeah, the big, particularly after the last incident on his bicycle or whatever it is.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
neighbors
yeah.
knocking on the door, you know, like.
Definitely no. But yeah, so for yourself, Craig, I mean, you're a great person of wisdom and insight, and you know, is there anything that stood out for you? You know, I mean, you've already explained in day one's reflections, you know, something you're very aware of.
Yeah, the big thing, but just one thing that Mark was chatting about right in the beginning, saying about the regulations, and is it that simple? I want to tell you, Mark, that for us it actually is. For those of us that see things, like we look and say, how can people actually not see this? You know, it just seems so blatantly obvious. But unfortunately, a lot of people just don't see it. You know, we look at something, it's like it just seems so clear and so obvious, you know. But
Yeah.
other people don't. So it's maybe just part of who we are, you know. So things for us sometimes can be really simple, but that makes it complicated because other people don't see it like that, and you can't figure out why they don't see it. But that was an interesting point you brought up. But the big thing that's landing for me is that I know I just need to be myself, and I think I did talk about that maybe last night a little bit, you know, and not worry, but like rejection's been a big thing, as I spoke about last night. My dad leaving at a young age, trauma ever since, like Mark had as a youngster that sat with me, and I really felt what's landed for me is just being myself. I mean, as I said, I know I'm okay, you know, and those rejection, all those kind of things, it's just, and it's not a learning or whatever, it's just, I know it's okay. So that's really what's landing for me in these last, since I started this with you, is just settling within myself, you know, and just going kind of inward in a sense, and reminding myself of who I am. Those traumas that I've had, and Mark spoke at length of some of his traumas that were a lot worse than mine, but I mean, I said we all have them in some way, and they can be small and affect us quite severely, you know.
Yeah.
So the big thing for me, I'm realizing these days, is to let go of some of those traumas and things that have sat and created that pattern of mine of looking, as I say, to need to fix people and whatever, you know. Yeah, so I'm really sitting within myself and just being okay with. I think you and I may have spoken about it a week or two ago about not being an over giver, you know. Always want to tend to want to help, and sometimes I gotta just say, sorry, I can't help you, you know. I'm doing something myself. Because normally I'll just say, okay, well, I won't do what I was going to do. I'll help you, whatever. It's like, no, I actually want to do that, you know, so it's okay. So yeah, I'm really sitting really quietly within myself and feeling a real peace in terms of a relationship coming. I think I told you a friend of mine's got a dating group that she started up in Auckland a couple of months ago and whatever you, and it's kind of really closed, and it's she needs to know you or been referred, and you know, it's not just like an open dating group, and it's kind of like, so like one of the ladies, well, I'm too far because I'm Kerikeri's away from there, so and that's okay, I understand, that's no problem, you know? So it's just knowing that because the minute in the past to be something like a rejection, it's like a major stab in the heart for me, you know. It's like, no, it makes logical sense that it's just not going to work that way or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And just things like that. So I'm really finding an inner peace within myself with relationships, because I always want to just be the right one from straight up. It's like, hey, you may have to go for coffee a couple of times, yeah. It's okay. Just remember who you are, and it's do that. So
And I,
yeah,
and I think, I mean, there's no right and wrong way around dating and how we move through those. It all depends on people's individual circumstances. And I think the biggest thing I find is a lot of our culture is like so fast paced, right? That, you know, and actually, you know, when we want to get to know somebody deeply, you can't know that in one or two meetings. You can't
yeah.
know that in, you know, one phone call on the phone and just meeting up with them once. Or, and for me, it's like I remember someone saying to me years ago actually that if you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, why do we need to know them like well, you know, unravel everything and have everything done so fast in the beginning stages, whereas then the end becomes, you know, kind of stagnant, and people are like, oh, it's not there's not that same level of chemistry anymore, you know. And it's not saying we don't want to meet somebody deeply in the beginning. 100% we do. We want to have those open and decent conversations. A big piece for me that used to come through a lot was, you know, knowing that I was, you know, to find the ultimate relationship is, well, like I said, it starts with self. And it was literally by doing this work, because vibrationally, you know, after my divorce or during the abuse, I was not, you know, did not have the awareness around the things I have awareness around now about myself, or even those unhealthier patterns. And for somebody to meet us in such a deep way, you know, I no longer, you know, attracted to trauma bonding. You know, years ago, I, you know, just wanted somebody to love me, and I would seek that, and, you know, and whatever it was, and especially the avoidant men. And I know where that trigger came from too. But also wanting to change them and fix them and seeing potential, the Lemurians and all the different patterns. And I used to be like, oh my goodness, like I'm getting a run through. Not that I've dated lots of men, I've always had long-term relationships. But just witnessing those pieces within me, you know, my own masculine and feminine, and you know, I do want to say to anyone that's watching this too, around the masculine and feminine, there is a lot of teachings out there, and some of them are great, you know, pathways, introductions. You know, I look at them as stepping stones to understanding aspects, but a lot of them try and tell us to be something we're not, are not. There is aspects of understanding that the masculine does show up differently in a lot of ways, and so does the feminine. But we can be, you know, our inner world, you know, there's a union that occurs within us, right, for us to meet somebody outside of ourselves. And I just used to find that there was a lot of teachers that actually were trying to convince us that, oh, well, you know, you're just not feminine enough, or, you know, you need to completely, that's why it's happening, because there's something really wrong with you, because you're not in your feminine, or you're not in your masculine, you're not providing enough, and you're not, you know, obviously, you know. And I literally, and I went down that journey, but things just didn't resonate. Parts of it did, I do say. But there is also some really beautiful teachers, and I actually have some friends that do this, and you know, she's in a beautiful sacred union relationship, you know. But her teachings are not like, okay, you know, she teaches us more about how to engage in these dynamics and how to meet both aspects of us, and how to learn to inner trust, and, you know, realizing that the feminine, you know, instances like one of the ones I remember realizing was, yeah, men will often outsource in feminine energy, but that's in golf and fishing and, you know, surfing, and those are feminine qualities of the earth, right? You know, and it can be, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And I remember reading some of the books from David Diet and going, oh, now I can see how mine and my ex-husband's relationship, the dynamics that happened to make it really be the way it was, because eventually I was in my own protection mode, and two masculine energies coming together can actually, but it didn't mean I was always like that. so, you know, there's parts of that that can teach us some things, but there's also some of that that can really lead us astray as well. You know, I made myself feel like I wasn't feminine enough, but actually it was a journey of getting to know my masculine and my feminine and how they danced, and understanding aspects of, like, I tell my boys all the time, you know, if mum asks you to do something, you say you're going to do it in 5 minutes, do it in 5 minutes. If you say, I'll do it soon, mum, just do it soon. I just want to get it off my head and out of my space, but I need to trust that you're going to do it. If you don't want mum to start nagging at you or be controlling, then honor your word, right? You know, and I posted about this the other week. And it's a thing of, it's integrity, right? So, you know, there's things that happen in dynamics where our nervous system becomes protective, and we have to look at what is happening and why we're in that, you know, safety system or protection system, and what is actually triggering that. Sometimes it can be core wounds, sometimes it can be our inner home system, you know, sometimes it's not necessarily the other person, it is actually something in us too, you know. So there's a depth of teaching when it comes to the masculine and feminine, and looking at those parts and how they dance together. But yeah, the reflection for me, the biggest piece is getting to know those pieces in me and my own journey, and trusting in myself what felt right to me, and not always taking other people's word as gospel. And I, you know, for people in this program as well, it's the same thing. I mean, your head might tell you something. Don't listen to your nervous system. It's not always right. But listening to your intuition, the deeper knowing, that it always trusts that. And if something, you know, what resonates in the path of healing, your actual higher self knows its way. And your body's divine intelligence, and you can access that by learning how to regulate yourself, you know, and creating coherence within yourself, being curious and being devotional to self, right? And that leads us towards great relationships.
Yeah. No, the other big thing that I'm having to learn, have learned in life for some time, but the relationship side of things is to be patient, you know, because I'm generally I'm not a patient person. And I've always sort of trusted in the sense, like, God's brought this person to me, it must be the right thing, boom, let's go. You know? So no, let's take your time, like you say, you know. I've only been in long-term relationships, as you say. And for the first time, my previous relationship, where I knew it wasn't a long-term relationship, we both kind of knew that it was okay just to be in a relationship, you know. And I was able to just walk a path, and we both got to know each other and take a time and just kind of separated when the time was right. So for me, I'm also learning to sit with, I know who I am, like I said. So I'm learning through this now to just wait for it to come, you know, and just be patient. It's not patient and I'll just wait for the right person. It's like patient. You meet someone, just take your time, like you say, you know, just get to know them. Might be in the past a few things, oh, this person's this, that must be the right thing, you know. So I know who I am. I know that that person that I'm going to be with is going to be someone really, really special. It doesn't mean that everybody that I may meet is not special, but there are very few people, women, that will be the perfect person for me, in a sense. And for the first time, I'm able to sit with them and say it's okay to just walk a path with someone and just see where it ends up. It doesn't matter. Don't jump in, because I've always jumped into things, you know. Once I feel like it's destined or whatever, it's like I'll just jump in, you know. And so, no, mate, that's not a good idea. Just take your time. I don't want to be trying to please someone and make them. It's actually about pleasing myself. And I don't mean that in a physical sense. I mean pleasing myself.
With values and alignments,
valuing and aligning myself. And if that just becomes a friendship, whatever, that's okay. And if it's not the right person, it's okay. I need to make the decision for myself, not try and please somebody else, what they're looking for, you know. So it's been a big shift for me. Thank you. But the patience part, man, that's definitely not my strength. The patience is a virgin, you know.
Yeah. And I'm a Taurus, so patience was never one of my strongest things either. And learning this path of being the same, right? It's like, actually, I'm happy to find, you know, just like I say, 1 in a million, but that person will be amazing for me. And learning, like I say, I want to have a best friend, you know. And best friends, you might gel with somebody, you know, very quickly, but having a best friend and knowing, you know, what their values are they aligned? Are we walking the same path? You know, you don't want to get, you know, it, and also not being attached as well as in the beginning stages until you create a space of like, okay, actually, we really want to work through this and move forward. But, you know, any relationship, you want a best friend. You know, I've been there when it's been chemistry and we move through things fairly quickly in the beginning stages. And then later on, even though we could have great conversations, the foundations of a best friend weren't there. And yet my previous partners, you know, I'm still really close to them except for one, but yeah, I'm really close. We're still best mates. You know, we can ask each other things, we can show up for each other, you know, but we weren't aligned long term. We weren't heading in the same direction long term. But that doesn't mean that they weren't a valued piece of my life and my direction, you know, and it was part of my growth as well. So, you know, I don't want to, you know, I don't want all, like, I guess a lot of people sometimes see these as karmic relationships as well, and, you know, like learning lessons, and they all will teach us things, but they don't always necessarily mean that they're karmic, you know. So yeah,
It's
yeah,
like Mark says, it's a that's a jigsaw puzzle, and there's some pieces that need to be fitted into that. And it may be just a 50-piece one that you finish off and you can put it aside, and there may be another 500 or 5,000 piece one ahead of you. But the other big thing you brought up is the attachment side of it. And that's something I'm really having to work with, I guess, in a sense, because I've always kind of felt like I need an attachment. And I know I don't need that anymore, but it's just, and you know, Mark and I have spoken about the traumas where it just triggers you, you know, it's a trigger almost. That
Yeah, and
attachment, needing an attachment, you know, so I need to just let that go.
it's a fear of being alone too, and an
Yeah.
aspect of loneliness. I mean, for me in the beginning, a lot of mine was is that I didn't know how to be alone, right? And you know, and it was almost as if having somebody made me feel like maybe that was where my worth was sitting, and learning to actually just love myself and love my life, and realize that actually somebody that will come in will add to that, but not be what makes me love my life or love myself. And that's a very different place to be than expecting somebody else to be the person that fulfills that love for my life, you know, that, you know, and we see it often that when relationships or marriages break down and the kids leave home, and all of a sudden people are like, who am I? I have no idea who I am. You know, I'm lost because I have no idea, you know, whereas for me, even as a single mom, and being a mom, I've still learned to know who I am, you know, and being selfless and selfish is sort of finding a place of neutrality. I'm not one or the other, but I do take care of myself and prioritize myself, but I also prioritize and put my children as a priority as well. And it's learning that we can have that dance, you know, and with somebody else when we've learned to do that with ourselves, right? Of being able to actually say, hey, I really need this right now. I need to go to the gym, or I need to go for a walk on my own. And it's nothing personal. I just need this for me, you know? And instead of feeling like that you need them to make you feel fulfilled, you know, that's putting a lot of weight and pressure on somebody else. And when things fall apart, it can leave us devastated because we think that our worth and happiness is built in that. So yeah, it's a large thing for a lot of people, codependency, right?
yeah. And what you were saying, it starts with the self, doesn't it? It's always, and this is what I've realized. It's like the more I'm okay with being on my own and, you know, being by myself, like being your own best friend. It's like enjoying your own company. These are like really simple concepts, but some people are terrified of that. It's like, no, oh, no, I can't be alone. No. And it's like, but the more I'm at ease and I'm at peace with just being, well, I'm taking myself out to dinner, taking myself out to see a movie, all by my lonesome. That's fine. I'm good company. And yeah, the dog agrees with me. The more I can connect to myself, the easier it is for me to connect with others. I always go to the supermarket, and like this morning, this woman had a really hilarious slogan on her t-shirt, and I read on notice and I laughed and I'm like, yep, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. And they're like, ah, and then they start to relax because they can sense that, you know, your nervous system, and this is why I keep saying life is a regulation game. He who is more regulated wins. Always. Doesn't matter what it is before you. If you're the more regulated one, you're the one that can lead with integrity and compassion and truth.
And you feel more calm to others. And even if it is, like I said, a calm strength, I can be very, very direct when I need to be, you know, but it's a calm strength, right? Of people can feel it in your energy that actually, you know, she's not losing
Presence.
it. Yeah, she's not, they're not triggered, you
Not
know.
threatening.
Yeah, and then it's, well, like I find too, for me, in the dating scene, you know, and I'll go out and, you know, I've met people, and I'll, you know, a lot of them say, oh wow, like you're so easy to talk to, and you're so, and it's like, well, because I'm quite comfortable with myself and I don't
Yeah.
have much to hide, but I'm very easy to get along with. But for me,
Yeah.
I also know who the conversations can feel, you know, very vanilla, or that they don't spike some sort of interest, or, you know, and you can't find that in one conversation, but, you know, they'll always say, wow, like I really enjoyed that, you know, and they wait for me, and it's like, actually, well, I don't feel it, you know, and
Yeah.
it's not, it's just because you know, for me now, with all the work I've done, I'm okay with being, some people say it's like, you could say it's being selective, and it's actually, well, I'm actually just, I seek alignment, and I can feel if somebody's aligned or not aligned fairly quickly, and how it feels. Not that people make my nervous system go up, but I can just, there's a resonance in the field, and conversations, and asking where they're heading with their lives, and what are they looking for, and what hobbies do they like, and, you know, even if for me it's like, are they great with kids? There's certain things that I need to know if, is this actually something that I want to pursue and get to know this person more? Are they interested in spirituality or personal growth, or, you know, and this is where getting to know ourselves becomes very important, because then we actually realize that there is things that we desire and need. And you know, I've actually spoke about this in tomorrow, day 4's audio transmission, though. I remember years ago, you know, when I was doing my energy practices, and, you know, I work on manifesting certain things into my life, because and I achieve everything. I'm always greatly successful. It can be delayed timing, you know, I've got to let go of when it arrives sometimes, but always been able to achieve the things I desire, because I do the work, right? And I bring alignment to my energetic systems. And I remember not long after my divorce, I was doing these practices, and, you know, at that stage, I wanted solar and some chickens, right? But I also had in there, I wanted, you know, I wrote out like what I was looking for in a man. And I remember then, you know, manifesting him into my life, and we're still really great friends. But after a few months, I was like, oh, like I actually need to tweak this. There is actually things that were significant that I were missing, that I actually did need. And it's not till we know ourselves, and you know, was doing my healing work at that stage, and it was like I almost wanted to go in and tweak my little list, you know. And that sounds funny, but it is actually understanding, actually, what do I really need, and is this person actually in alignment? I can't ask somebody else to change that. I could say, hey, like I do need this, you know, and that's an option, whether it is available for them or not, you know. But there is that space of, we can attract things into our lives, and to teach us sometimes what we need. Sometimes it is somebody comes into our lives that offered something that we actually didn't know that we did need and really liked, and it made us feel safe, and it made us feel great. But they may also have had things that were like, that's a no, and I can't do that, you know. And I've got a few people in this group that have shared, you know, relationship dynamics where they felt certain things with a person that they had never felt before, you know, experienced in a way it made them feel in love, and, you know, an electric feeling, and, you know, being able to communicate about certain things. But then there was this level of chaos and trauma, and, you know, other things. And again, for them, it was like actually realizing, okay, well, I need someone to communicate in such a way, but I also really love this piece. And I said to them, well, you to attract that into your lives and realize that actually you're met with certain aspects of a higher quality relationship, and other aspects that weren't, you know, as healthy. You had to have some of that resonance, and it's available for you again to receive those high qualities again, and somebody else that is in balance as well, in the healthy qualities as well. So, you know, it's actually just realizing what was the resonance of what that was teaching us, and why was I actually attracted to that dynamics. It's often that people sort of say, oh, once they felt like they met the one, and even if it was the most chaotic relationship, they can tell themselves, oh, well, I'll never experience that again. And that, I have to say, that's bullshit. You hope you don't have to experience the chaos again, but you can experience a depth of love again. That's don't deny yourself of that. And it's something to witness within yourself. And a lot of people will grieve, and their nervous system and their heart will grieve, you know, or the nervous system be overactivated, because they created a story, again, a new story that, oh, that's, you know, I'm never going to experience that kind of love again. And so they block themselves from it, you know, and so it's actually really stopping and being present with ourselves to witness, what am I actually telling myself? What identity and what am I creating? Because that becomes an identity that you're telling yourself you're no longer not worthy of that kind of love, you know, becomes an identity. And anything, then you can't even receive that, even if they turned up, because you'll deny yourself of it, but they won't resonate with you because you're already sort of said, well, hey, these qualities in you, I'm not available for, right? So it's being really conscious of watching what we say and how we respond and what feels in our body, and, you know, witnessing these kind of things for us to actually shift through and heal from those experiences.
Yeah, and what you're getting back to what you were saying, it starts with the self, and it starts with, well, what is my model of love? What is my pattern of love? And is that actually good? Is it it might be familiar, all that chaos and chemistry and attraction, but it's not until you reset that love pattern to a healthy one, to a, like I said, a baseline, then you've got choice. But when you're like you said, you up here, you create the stories. Oh, that was the most spectacular love. I'll never feel that, you know, all that mind, those mind stories and those mind lies, if you want to call them that. And again, getting back to self-love, and, you know, I've got my own little holy trinity, if you want to call it. You know, you've heard the expression, you know, love thyself. That, to me, that this is why I call it the whole Mark's Holy Trinity. I should trademark it. You know, if you've got the apex of the pyramid, love thyself, then at the bottom you've got those two other familiar expressions: know thyself and heal thyself. Now, if you can love yourself back to a state of homeostasis naturally, you do get to know yourself and you are able to heal yourself. But people just focus on, say, the healing without loving themselves, and yet they'll heal, they'll have limited results, or they'll focus on knowing themselves and acquiring all this knowledge, but still not loving them. And it'll only get them so far. But when you can sort of focus on, you know, what you're saying, just honoring yourself and loving yourself in a healthy, functional, regulated way, instead of the dysfunctional, you know, activated, triggered, you know, where you created all these stories, then life really starts to get interesting, and you know, synchronicities and revelations. Like for me, it's like bit by bit, day by day, as I'm getting more clarity and giving back to myself, I'm getting more energy. It's just coming, because all that energy that used to be tied up in holding those stories in place start to unravel, and the energy starts to release and dissipate, and then it starts to move through my entire body and system and say, okay, well, now that energy's been liberated. Now I can go to this bit and use that energy to start focusing on that area, you know, and I'll start feeling it, you know, well, this part of my body feels clear now, and now there's something else down here, and it still feels like mostly around the heart. More so now, it's sort of gravitated from the solar plexus up to the heart area. But, you know, I'm okay with that. It's like I'm not trying to rush it or force it, because I don't have to.
No. And the thing is I think, like, and I've said this already to everyone in here, well, firstly, what you just said, the stories, and they a lot of them are illusions, but of the mind, yet they feel real. They feel real. And, you know, and when we have these ingrained core wounds and home systems, those systems create a sense of very real in our lives because we experienced it. We have, you know, so, and the reticular activator, look, I actually said it today, will look for things to like validate those stories, right? It will look for that. And the craziest thing
Reinforce
is,
it.
yeah. And, you know, like it's like the existential kink, right? Of like, you know, we will attract people into our lives just to almost validate the most kinkiest of stories that are playing in our subconscious, right? And our mind is very tricky like that because it's engaging with the nervous system as well. And this is why we just have to witness and remember there's 60,000 thoughts a day. We get to choose which one defines us. And I tell you what, even as much work as I've done, and I've come a long, long, long way, and I attract beautiful people into my life and have them, I'm very blessed because of this work that I've done. It's so fucking worth it. I still occasionally have stories come up, you know, and I just have to giggle and go, oh wow, that one was trying to play a bit real in my life at the moment. And most of the time, those stories come up for me, and it's just knowing myself is when I'm tired, right? When I'm a little bit stressed, when you know, and actually recognizing, okay, well, when I'm tired, I go more shadowy. We all do, right? Some people, it's when they're hungry, they get that hangry, you know, and they get a bit more snappy, and you know, and it's actually going, okay, well, what do I need at this moment? Okay, I need space, or I shouldn't be approaching heavy conversations right now, or actually, I just need to be compassionate with my head in this moment. And you know, and not judge myself and go, oh gosh, you know, like I'm thinking bad things, you know, like as we start to condemn ourselves looking for perfection, and you know, and it's not about perfection. We need to recognize that loving ourselves is having compassion, holding space for ourselves, right? If it was our children and our child came to us and say, Mom, I'm really, really tired, and actually was able to own these aspects of themselves and saying, I'm just having a day where I'm having a lot of icky thoughts, you know, we wouldn't go and tell them they're shit, you know, like it's just being really compassion and curiosity are actually an aspect of self-love, right? It's not about saying, sitting in the mirror and going, oh, I love myself, I look amazing, you know, like there is some of those little things that we can do in the moments when we feel off can actually be done with self-love in the instance of curiosity and just, you know, just being real with ourselves and going, actually, well, I'm tired. I'm having a day that's off. Or it could be a friggin' moon. I tell you what, sometimes some of the moons catch me, you know, and I'll giggle. I've even wrote, like when I wrote my book, remember the weekend of that, I felt like I literally was like, I think I have werewolves in my house because my kids were literally like bouncing off the wall and ready to rip each other apart. Tell you what, like I was starting to feel it, right? And wasn't they, none of us were sleeping well because the moons can affect us, and it's again proven in science. Some people might say it's a bit woo woo and a bit too spiritual, but it's truth, right? And yeah, so it's just being kind to ourselves, and the more deeper we get to know ourselves, the more deeper we get to know our nervous system. We watch our stories, watch how our body feels. All of these things are potent pieces towards creating the ultimate relationship and creating inner union. So, boys, is there anything else that you wish to share? I mean, there was questions there, but you guys yesterday, because we jumped on yesterday, you two came on to yesterday. We kind of covered day 1 and 2 too, because I know you both had already listened to those, and you're already on day 3, where this is a reflection of day 2, and we kind of talked about day 2 already in day 1 with you two. Other people were coming in and, you know, joining us. We would cover a lot more of the other questions, you know, but you'll get these extra questions and transmissions through the audios as well. So I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to be a spoiler and kind of wreck the next pieces. I've already done a few little mic drops of already pieces to come for the next day or so, you know. So yeah, I appreciate both of you coming here and sharing, and it just opens a space of communication, and hopefully we do get a few more people. You know, I'm getting messages from people saying, sorry, I was at work, or, you know, some people are, you know, had some big things going on this week as well. And they're like, I am listening, I'm just watching in the background, you know, so, and that's okay. So, you know, I know when I've been in some groups too, I can be the silent watcher and doing the work and receiving so much gold from it, you know, but I appreciate both of you coming here and articulating your pieces as well for everyone else. So, anything else that you guys wish to share?
Well, I'll just mention I've got a healing at 9 o'clock, which is in 5 minutes time. So
All right, you better go.
I'll need to go. That's okay. It's all right. And other thing is tomorrow I got yoga and then a guided meditation after. So I don't think I'll be able to make it tomorrow. I'm not sure what your time will be, but I'll be from like 7 o'clock, 9 o'clock my time. I'm going to be doing stuff.
I was
So,
hoping to do it much earlier tomorrow, but Byron's got cross country and I only found out about this week. So, but I still think I'm going to run it around maybe 3 o'clock-ish. I'll pull up the time shortly and drop it in the group. I've been dropping the next Zoom after this Zoom, mainly so that people don't get confused with which ones are which. And yeah, again,
Yeah.
if you make it, you
no
make it.
problem.
If you
Yeah,
don't,
tomorrow I may not be able to make it because I say I got a couple of things on. I've got to take my granddaughter to swimming in the afternoon and then spend some time with her, which I just love. So
they're
and
things that,
then, yeah, a couple of things after that and what have you.
oh, they're all
And
valuable things, right? And
yeah,
you get
yeah.
to enjoy life with it, and you'll get to, drop anything in you need to
Mm.
share. And yeah, no, I appreciate you being here anyway and sharing your beautiful insights
Yeah.
and wisdom.
I just wanted to thank you, Mark, for being here as well. You know, it's nice to have another try to just chat and see your side of things. I mean, obviously, we both appreciate Kelly's
Yeah. Yeah, and I
that she does.
appreciate
That's nice to
anybody
have
that shows up in this kind
Yeah.
of space, because it's like, it is actually a really vulnerable space. Now that I think about it, and it doesn't surprise me that many people didn't show up, really, because
yeah.
it's their stuff, and yeah, and I can understand why they just want to hang back and listen later. There was something that came. Oh yeah, because I have to realise that when you say 3 o'clock Queensland time, it's 4 o'clock here in Sydney time or Canberra time. So it's like, yeah.
Or
And
for
it's 6
Craig,
o'clock here in New Zealand.
yeah, that's right.
definitely
Craig, right now for Craig, it's like 9 o'clock at night or something for
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
So yeah, right. So yeah, no, that's all right. And like I said, there's people from all over the world, so it is one of those things. But no, that's all good, Craig. Thank you for
Awesome.
showing up, and I will catch you somewhere in one of the
Well, nice to
things. Yeah.
chat to you guys, and I'll do my stuff tomorrow, but I may not be able to jump on live.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
nice to catch up with you guys, man. All the best, eh?
All right,
Thanks,
night.
Greg.
Yeah, see
Enjoy
ya.
your healing.
Thank you. See ya.
No worries.
Mm.
Back to you and me.
Yeah, back to us, right? So yeah, and I'm sure like for yourself too, there's been a big pieces that are landing for you in relation to, like what has it been costing you, and even knowing like, if you were to continue these dynamics, how is that affecting other things in your lives as well, right? So,
Yeah.
and staying in this identity, sometimes we actually have to stop and go, well, actually, what are we receiving from this? If it keeps playing out, and this is a really, really important piece for people to realize too, is what am I receiving by staying in this, right? Because if something is playing out, there's a part of our body that is actually receiving something of value. And often when we drop into a place that, it's easy to judge and easy to see that these dynamics are unhealthy. And, this is why people will sit in the background and not jump on, because it is confronting to share our experiences in front of people.
Yeah.
But witnessing
like
what
you were saying, it was like when it's almost like an addiction, really. It's like when what your concept of love or safety is, when you get that hit, it is a dopamine hit.
Mhm.
And that's why it's really similar to the patterns of addiction.
Yep.
Which is what makes it fucking hard to unravel and unpack and undo, because you're like, your body and your system, your nervous system is so used to getting that hit.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, and it's realizing too, like if we stopped and you're actually going to go, okay, actually, what am I receiving from this? This is a potent question, of actually sitting with something and going, actually, what was I receiving? Because that actually brings some sort of self-love to it, and actually realizing that there's a part of us that actually is being rewarded.
Yeah.
So, it can be control, it could be safety, which are common ones we've talked about, but there could be an aspect of avoiding being rejected, right? People that avoid love or have an avoidant attachment style often have a lot of fear around being rejected or abandoned in love, so
Yeah.
they rather run from it. There can be, again, the feeling of familiarity, because that's a nervous system. It's not often something that we know we receive, but it is an acknowledgement that almost everybody is receiving something from this. It's a feeling of being needed. If we were like the rescuer or the healer or the knight in shining armor. It is an energy. Or, you know, like you were the one like, oh, I'll be the problem solver, right? Again, then there's a need that they'll need me because I can help them fix their problems, you know. And we have to witness it from an aspect of actually, okay, what part of our system, not just from the unhealthy aspect, what is the healthy aspect that our body actually has created as a sense of safety and protection in it. So yeah, it's really powerful to look at it from those points of views as well.
Yeah, and when you talk about, it's funny. I had a funny sort of insight because you're talking about patterns or the codes, coding for love or attachment styles, and I'm like, I'm actually a code breaker. That's my
Mm,
role because I've seen how I think you were saying before, when you can witness or observe yourself and your reaction without condemnation or any kind of blame or shame or judgment, that's when that process of observing is empowering, because
yeah,
then you start to realize, well, actually, yeah, I do have a choice. As a
yeah,
child, I had no choice. That was the environment. I had no choice about the environment that I was raised in. So naturally, all that shit just imprinted, and that's what my nervous system coded and
mm,
became familiar with. But now it's like, nah, don't
yeah,
want that, don't need it. And in the context of like attraction, I don't know. I used to have this big thing about being rejected, but now it's like I don't care. I'll approach a beautiful woman like I did this morning at the supermarket and just say, "Hey, cool shirt, love the slogan, totally get it." And because I can connect to myself, and I don't have any fear of rejection or being abandoned. It's like, she had a laugh and she's like, "Yeah, it is pretty cool. It's pretty funny." And now it doesn't concern me. It's like, I'm not in the space yet to feel like I want to go dating, but at the same time, I'm okay with it. I'm open
mm.
to it
And
because,
rejection is not rejection, to be honest. It's literally some self-honoring, right? If we were to say no, thank you, and you know, in the beginning, I used to fear saying no to people. I used to be worried about how it would hit them and how it would affect them, and you know, so there's that people pleasing, and then realizing one day, actually, it's actually self-honoring of my boundaries and what feels right in my own body. And you know, being able to own that part of ourselves, right? And it's actually creating a different awareness around what saying no means. And no is just a boundary, and it's a self-honoring, right? And we don't
yeah,
need to make it like, if someone was to say no thanks, not interested, I don't need to make it about me.
yeah,
It's about them. It's them honoring themselves. And that's actually something that we should actually appreciate them doing that. And if they really didn't feel that connection and were saying yes to us, they're really not doing us any favors anyway, right? So,
yeah,
you know, there's various things like that that become very potent in this space, right? So, you know, it'd be great if there was other people, because we could talk about more of these tripping things, you know, that happen quite often. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there anyway, Mark, unless there's anything else you want to drop into the space. And
yeah. Quickly, that B word, boundaries. Fuck, it used to drive me nuts, especially with because my ex partner would go on about it. My boundaries, my boundaries. And even when I'm like, she's got 3 family violence orders against me, like in the past, and always to do about boundaries. And even when I'm doing my best to honor her boundaries and respect her boundaries, it's like the last one, it was like a text message confirming hand over the children. She's like, no, you've breached the family violence order. You're not supposed to do that unless it's through a lawyer. And it's like, but I thought I could message you about care for the children. So, and this is why I get clarity around it, because it's like, even though I'm thinking I'm honoring her boundaries, it's like she's got her own stuff and she's got shit that she doesn't want to confront herself. And somehow, me pushing up against, I didn't even feel like I was pushing up against her boundaries, but for her, it was, and it was perceived as a threat. And, I got arrested for that and then spent a night in jail and before the magistrate. I'm like, what the fuck is this really all about? Is it me? Is it really
and
just me?
yeah, and boundaries, I mean, boundaries, it's really being able to give a clear understanding of what they are, because they can be interpreted wrong. And you know, something I witnessed recently is that you know, some men in other cultures they're not used to when women say no thank you, it's no thank you, it's just a no thank you. It's a straightforward boundary, and I don't actually need to justify to somebody I don't know why I'm not interested in connecting with them overseas even more, or having a pen pal. It's not where I'm at. I've got plenty of friends. I don't have time to connect with random people all over the world just because they want to be my friend and have my attention and time.
Yeah.
And saying no thank you to them again will then, at first they push that boundary and it's like, oh, well, that actually turns me on. I'm like, oh, that's actually really bad, because if you were to say no, like even in a sexual context or something else, they think that's a turn on, and I was like, that's a real strong like warning sign there. But then also then, to say actually like again, it's a no is a boundary. It's just a clear line in the sand. And some boundaries though, and I will, with my ex, when I put my boundaries, I'm actually really clear. It's not just a no, it's that, because of these situations and what is okay, and, even reasonable time to return to reply to something is within, 48 hours. And, so many things had to be put in place, and it could sound like it's a controlling aspect, but it actually allows coherence of my body and my nervous system to be regulated, and to also know what is a healthy expectation and appropriate. It's not going outside of the family laws or anything like that. But if there's areas of grayness with somebody that is unstable and can manipulate something, that creates conflict. And I do refuse to allow conflict around my children anymore, or in my own life, and learning that that's actually something to do with actually creating a healthy behavior. In other people, I don't necessarily need to have to be that black and white and have every I and T dotted, but in some circumstances when there is a lot of family violence and particular things, it is having a very clear understanding of exactly what they are and having it in writing in black and white, so there's no confusion. And then that way one person, because it's easy for what one person to interpret as something, another person can see it as something else. And that's where I'm saying, when I say no thank you to some people in other countries, they're not used to women being able to even say no, and hang on, but I'm being lovely, and don't you want this? And it's like, actually, I've never asked for that, and no, I don't want that. And and then I've seen them turn around and then start to be quite nasty, and because they feel rejected or want to bring up their own religions and beliefs and stuff. And I'm like, it's actually, I'm not interested in engaging in this conversation. It's block and delete, right? Because I don't need to. And that's not shaming them, because a lot of it I've noticed is particular countries these men do this from, and because I guess in their country the difference in where women have rights and women can speak for themselves is not the same as what it is in our country. And this can also become back to aspects of the feminine and her beauty, and women want to be seen, they like to be beautiful. But that's not an open invitation for you to be leaky all over them. And it's actually, there's a place of self-honor and asking permission and actually getting clarity and various things like that. But we have to look at it from various different cultures as to how certain dynamics play out, right? Because religion, cultural things, they can actually very, very much create different attractions and dynamics, that actually, for some people that we just won't get. We just don't understand that, because it's not normal in our culture, or not normal in, if it's a religion, that, that is it, they don't know anything outside of that. And their mind are limited in understanding those things, right? So it's, again, it's looking at things from an open mind and an open perspective, and being more kind to people that maybe just don't know. And it's not, and something that landed for me recently is, it's actually not up to me to teach everybody. I'm not here to fix the whole world and every single person that drops into my inbox. I'm here for the ones that want help. I'm here for the ones that when they want help, I'm happy to hold their hand and lead them towards what they need and how to do these things. But some people, they're not, like we spoke about yesterday, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. I can't completely upend somebody's whole belief systems in a short message on Messenger or something like that, or change their whole perception of females, or, you know, in a moment they would need to engage in deeper learning, deeper programs, deeper awareness of themselves to get there.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you know. I know I'll speak for me because I'm not sure about what your experience is or was with boundaries, but because I was raised in a different culture, so I'm an Aussie kid, but at the same time, I'm raised in a culture that's a European culture, like Croatian, Serbian, and most like like you think Italians, Greeks, there was no concept of boundaries at all, right? In those cultures, it's like
Yes.
everybody. It's okay for everybody to know everybody else's business. That's just part of their culture, and it wasn't until about I don't know 15 years ago that this whole concept and term of boundaries started to come in, and then I had to start, getting clarity around, well, what is a boundary? And I realized because I had no, and this is part of the problem, because I had no boundaries or any definition of what that is or what they're for, that I had to start to clarify it. And I think that that's kind of a thing that, it doesn't trigger me as much with my ex anymore because I understand where she's coming from. And it's more like you said, it's like getting clearer about like what is that line in the sand.
Mhm.
Because if you're not even aware that there's a line or a boundary, it's like, well, you're not to blame. It's like if you're not aware of it, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. So
Mhm.
I just wanted
100%.
to ask you, was it the same for you, or did you always have a concept of boundaries, or did it start to really, when did it start to really um, come into your awareness and something that you needed to clarify?
Well, I think it was not something, I think, even as growing up, we were taught that, saying no and asking permission and certain things like that, there was a level of that, but there wasn't a level of clear understanding that boundaries are self-respect, and they are creating understanding of what our needs are, right? It can be a place of also protection, so these kind of things, I as well, like it wasn't till I'd been through abuse that I was actually like understanding and honoring my own boundaries. When I put boundaries in place and I say, actually, this behavior will not be tolerated, I will not respond to this. Don't respond to it. It took me a while to not get caught up in the, hang on, he's just trying to lure me in, or, you know what I mean, to create some sort of conversation or energy pull and get my attention and make me reactive, right? So realizing that we actually have to honor our own boundaries, and that's again coming back to knowing what our needs are and putting them forward from a calm place of strength,
Yeah.
not from a place of like, overprotecting and, but like it's like with my children, they know there's certain boundaries. Be home before dark. It's just gone dark. Both my children have both walked in the door in the last couple of minutes because it is a boundary that is not to be, pushed. You're not home by dark, and there's because it's safety for me. I need to know that they're home and they're safe within my walls, but by a certain time. So teaching them those kind of things as well, right? Of um, like lying. That's a boundary for me. Do not lie to me. It doesn't matter how much, whatever it is, speak openly, speak honestly, tell me. And I've explained to them reasons why, because I think that they're having a bit more understanding of why these things are put in place.
Yeah.
So my children are learning these things because it's healthy for everybody to have boundaries, and learning from me for a long time that it didn't need to be no and an explanation or a justification of why. It can just be no, right? And that's okay. I do it with a no thanks,
Yeah.
but beyond that, I don't need to explain myself to people I don't know,
Yeah.
from
Yep.
other places. Yeah.
I can
And
appreciate that because it was like, but I was more curious about like, was your experience similar to mine in that you came from a place where there was no clearly defined concept of boundaries, or
Yeah,
it
yes
always
and no.
there?
I just think that it wasn't ever used as there were rules. That
Yeah.
was probably more the word that was used. We were not, we didn't grow up
Yeah.
with the word, oh, these are my boundaries. It was, these are the rules. So the rules in my house are X, Y, and Z. The rules at school are this, right? And so rules can be looked at as a state of boundaries, right? You do not go past this. It's a stop sign is stop, you know, like that is a specific rule. And it is also like a boundary, right? But boundaries are also, you know, when we look at them, they are about self-respect and love. And in certain dynamics, there needs to be more clarity. In other dynamics, there doesn't. In a relationship that you're with somebody, if you know something comes up and you're like, actually this is a need for me and this means that this is a boundary, and explaining to them, giving them some context of why and how it makes you feel, you know, that allows them to understand you deeper, right? And that can be healthy to explain, hey, I need you to do this. And when you don't do this, or you do something that is outside of, you know, doing something that is not acceptable or appropriate for us and it triggers us, this is how it makes me feel. So understanding that part of ourselves of something that this is what I need, and you know, actually, and I have a right to not engage in inappropriate behavior or vice, whatever it is, right? And so that's why there's certain rules, laws, and boundaries in place to create clear understanding around things that we might feel are inappropriate.
Yeah. And would you say there's a distinction between rules and boundaries, or are they
I don't
sort
know.
of?
I've never, I mean, if I think about that, that's not something I'm bringing up and discussing in this. I think it could
Yeah.
be something we could discuss more in the deeper
Yeah.
embodiment container. I feel like we're kind of getting off track, but I guess
Yeah, that's fine.
it's similar, you know, boundaries, rules can be very much of a similar context, you know. I guess if we are looking at the legal definition of them, there will be some differences, yeah. But in a standard, I don't, you know, say to the kids all the time that, hey, this is my boundaries, these are my rules, you know, but they are also boundaries around what I expect, you know, or
Yeah.
what is a yes and what is a no.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Clear
it
enough.
gives us a place, a construct or a place of where we know where we are safe within, you know.
Yeah.
A lot of the time in a lot of toxic relationships, there is an unexplained boundary or trigger that goes off. It's like a trip wire that is not spoken of, and it
The
can
unwritten
leave.
rules.
Yeah, well, or just it's like walking on eggshells, right? And that then this tripwire, you know, you just don't know, is that going to be their trip today? Sometimes they're a bit on edge because of this, and other days they're fine about that. And that's often where somebody doesn't understand themselves, or it hasn't set clear boundaries about, you know, one day I need this, one day I don't need this, and it makes it very confusing for somebody in a relationship. And these again are these toxic behaviors that sometimes can actually leave people feeling, you know, like unhinged, or you know, unsafe or unsure and confused, and various different feelings, because there's no confines, you know, of what is safety.
Yeah. And that safety promotes connection. So people feel safe
100%.
to connect.
Can't
Like,
have
yeah.
can't have a really great relationship if there's not safety. You
Yeah.
know, safety can't just be in glimpses and moments. It needs to be a consistent thing, you know, and
Yeah.
understanding when we don't feel safe and actually why we didn't feel safe and what we need to feel safe is something that we need to work out for ourselves. It's not for somebody else to tell us. It's something we need to work out for ourselves.
That internal
Yep.
safety first,
Yep.
and
Internal.
internal connection.
Yep, 100%, 100%. So yeah. All right, Mark. Well, I'm going to leave it there.
Set the
We will.
boundary.
Yeah,
Cut it
yeah.
off.
I'm setting the boundary. We've done. We'll connect again tomorrow. And thank you again for showing up.
Thank you. Appreciate you, and thanks for the awesome chats. Really
No
appreciate it.
problem. All right. Bye.
Have a good night. Bye.